I checked prices for a one-week stay at 10 popular and well-reviewed Caribbean all-inclusive beach resorts for every week from early December through the end of March. In this video, I'll show you the cheapest weeks of the winter, the dates when prices more than double, which 4 key weeks can save you the most money by booking early, and whether Cancun or Punta Cana offers the better deals for your schedule. I'm Roger from PriceOfTravel.com, and let's get into it. For this comparison, I focused on Greater Cancun and Punta Cana, the 2 largest all-inclusive resort markets in the Caribbean region, and usually the 2 best places to find competitive prices. I tracked 6 popular resorts around Cancun and 4 in Punta Cana, always pricing the least expensive all-inclusive room for 2 adults staying Saturday through Saturday. And the first thing that jumps out is just how dramatically Christmas changes everything. For the week beginning December 5th, the average 7-night price across all 10 resorts was $1,808 for 2 people. 1 week later, it was almost identical at $1,830. But starting December 19th, the average jumped to over $2,700, and for the week beginning December 26th, the average price among the resorts still showing availability soared to over $4,200, more than double the early December price for essentially the same vacation. And perhaps more surprisingly, rates dropped sharply again beginning with the second week of January, and at today's prices they remain remarkably stable through the end of March. Now let's take a closer look at the patterns, because choosing the right week and booking while the cheaper rooms are still available could save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars while giving you a much better choice of resorts. You'll notice that I started collecting prices in early December rather than at the official beginning of winter, and there are 2 reasons for that. First, the Atlantic hurricane season officially ends on November 30th, and early December brings some of the best beach weather of the year across the Caribbean, with warm temperatures, generally lower rainfall, and hurricane season officially behind you. The second reason is that the first 2 weeks of December are consistently the cheapest weeks of the entire winter resort season. Most people are busy preparing for the holidays rather than taking a Caribbean vacation, so demand remains relatively low even though the weather is already very good. If you can get away during this period, you can either book a surprisingly inexpensive vacation or upgrade to a nicer resort while still paying a reasonable price. For example, during the week beginning December 5th, the well-reviewed OLEO Cancun Playa was available for $1,535 for 7 nights. That works out to less than $220 per night, including the room, all meals, alcoholic drinks, and taxes for 2 people. In Punta Cana, the similarly well-reviewed Occidental Punta Cana was only $1,253 for the same week. That's just $179 per night for 2 people at an all-inclusive beach resort. Those prices were available when I checked in August. The least expensive rooms could disappear as the dates approach, but early December should remain one of the strongest value periods of the winter. It shouldn't surprise anyone that the weeks around Christmas and New Year's are expensive, but it does seem to surprise some people that these are the most expensive weeks of the entire year in the Caribbean, and it's not even close. So if you're thinking about visiting in late December to avoid the January crowds, that strategy definitely doesn't work. These weeks are enormously popular because so many people have time off, including almost every student. If Christmas week is your only option, the best advice is to book as early as possible. History tells us that the resorts generally raise their rates as rooms are booked, and because they already know that they'll sell out for Christmas, prices tend to move only in one direction, up. The good news is that a few relatively reasonable deals are still available this far in advance. For the week beginning December 26th, the Occidental Costa Cancun was available for $2,806 or about $401 per night. The Barceló Bávaro beach in Punta Cana was about $2,909 or about $415 per night. Those prices are roughly 60 to 80% higher than their early December rates, which is still far better than many other resorts that charge at least twice as much for Christmas week. And then there's the Occidental Punta Cana, which somehow jumped from $1,253 in early December to $8,458 for Christmas week, more than $1,200 per night and nearly 7 times the price. Basically, that's the resort's way of saying it's sold out, but if someone is crazy enough to pay almost $8,500, they'll apparently find them a room. For this video, I checked room rates across the entire winter season, and I collected all of these prices in mid-August. I've conducted similar resort price surveys for many years, but checking every winter week this early revealed something particularly useful. There are 4 periods from January through March that consistently attract unusually high demand: the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend in January, President's Day weekend in February, and the 2 busiest college spring break weeks in the middle of March. When I check prices closer to winter, often in December, those 4 periods almost always stand out as more expensive than the ordinary weeks surrounding them. but when you look this far in advance, the difference has barely appeared. Across the 10 resorts in this survey, the average 7-night price was $2,262 for the week beginning March 6th and $2,225 for the week beginning March 13th. Those are the two busiest spring break periods, yet they currently cost almost exactly the same as January, February, and the other March weeks. That doesn't mean these rates will remain flat. As families and students finalize their plans, the least expensive rooms at the most desirable resorts are likely to disappear first. By December, I expect those fixed holiday and spring break weeks to be noticeably more expensive than they are now. So if you already know that you'll be traveling during one of those 4 high-demand periods, booking early could save you hundreds of dollars or even more, while giving you a much wider choice of resorts and room categories. For an ordinary week without a major holiday, there's at least some chance that waiting could produce a last-minute discount. But for spring break or a 3-day holiday weekend, I would reserve a refundable rate early and continue checking. If that price falls later, you can usually cancel and rebook. If it rises or the cheaper rooms sell out, you're already protected. It's worth knowing that Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic has roughly 100 all-inclusive resorts. Most are enormous properties, some with thousands of rooms built along excellent beaches. The greater Cancun area has closer to 200 all-inclusive resorts spread from the hotel zone down through the Riviera Maya. They range from small boutique properties to gigantic resort complexes, so both destinations offer a wide variety of experiences. But this price survey revealed an interesting difference between them. During the first 2 weeks of December, the 4 Punta Cana resorts averaged $1,745 for 7 nights. The 6 Cancun resorts averaged $1,849 for the first week and $1,887 for the second. More importantly, Punta Cana's early December prices were much lower than its own January through March prices. So if you can fit in a Caribbean beach vacation during early December, your money currently goes further in Punta Cana. After the holidays, however, the winter changes. From the second week of January through the end of March, the Cancun resorts in this survey were consistently cheaper than the Punta Cana resorts, usually by around $100 to $350 for the week. Obviously, this doesn't mean every Cancun resort is cheaper than every Punta Cana resort, but if you're open to either destination for a January through March trip, I would begin the search around Greater Cancun. At least at today's prices, the selection includes more of the stronger bargains. I've visited both destinations and made many videos about them, and either one can be an excellent choice. But if you haven't developed a preference yet, you might as well begin with the one offering better prices for your particular week. I've already discussed several situations where booking early is generally the best strategy, and it matters most if you're traveling within about a week of Christmas or New Year's. The resorts know that they'll sell out during this period, so rates tend to keep moving higher as more rooms are booked and the cheapest categories disappear. And keep in mind that hotel reservations work differently from airline tickets. If you choose a refundable rate, you can usually cancel without penalty until fairly close to the check-in date. That means you can reserve a good resort at an acceptable price now, then continue checking while you arrange the flights and other details. If the rate drops, you may be able to cancel and rebook at the lower price. If rates rise or the resort sells out, you've already locked in your room. Booking early is also wise for the 4 high-demand periods we discussed from January through March, especially if your dates are fixed or you have a particular resort in mind. Some people ask whether it's better to wait for a last-minute deal, and I made an entire video about that, which I'll link below. The short version is that during non-peak winter weeks, you can often find tempting last-minute resort discounts. But there are 2 important catches. First, genuine last-minute airfare bargains are almost non-existent these days. Anything you save on the resort could be swallowed up and possibly exceeded by the extra cost of booking flights at the last minute. Second, those discounted rooms will only be available at resorts with more empty inventory than they expected. Instead of choosing from dozens of good properties, you might be choosing from a handful of resorts that you wouldn't have considered if you had booked earlier. So if your schedule is flexible and you're willing to take whatever becomes available, hunting for a last-minute deal can work. But if you know your dates and care where you stay, booking a refundable rate early is usually the better strategy. I've made many other videos about Caribbean islands and the all-inclusive resorts, so if you have additional questions, you might find answers in those videos, including tours and comparisons of destinations you might not have considered yet. But for this particular question, the cheapest times to visit the Caribbean this winter and when to book, the recommendations are fairly simple. If you can travel during the first 2 weeks of December, start by looking at Punta Cana. That was the strongest bargain in the survey, and you'll get excellent winter beach weather before the holiday prices arrive. If early December doesn't fit your schedule, choose almost any non-peak week from the second week of January through the end of March. For those dates, I would begin the resort search around Greater Cancun, which currently has the better prices in this comparison. And if you must travel during Christmas, New Year's, a holiday weekend, or the busiest spring break weeks, book as early as possible. Choose a refundable reservation whenever practical, especially when it costs little or nothing extra, so you can lock in today's prices without giving up the opportunity to rebook if a better deal appears later. So those are the most useful things I discovered after checking all-inclusive resort prices for every week of the winter season, and I hope this helps you choose better dates and get a better deal. I've also published an article on priceoftravel.com with more information about the data, along with links to the resorts I mentioned that currently stand out as the especially good values. You'll find that link below. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips or strong opinions about booking Caribbean vacations. Those comments often give me ideas for future videos. Please give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more practical travel advice and destination comparisons. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.